out with the recording and the slides. So that's something that you can count on. Also, as DSA leadership, we want you to join DSA, right? There's a ton of people on this call. The Democratic Socialists of America, of the United States, calls on the people of the United States to protest and resist this illegal war that is going on against Venezuela, stand in solidarity with President Maduro, with the First Lady, Celia, with the sovereign people of Venezuela, and stand in solidarity with Venezuelan sovereignty. So please join us for the long haul of this fight. Nothing is going to end soon. We have a ton of solidarity events that we're going to be announcing. So please join us in DSA, and somebody will drop the link. So briefly, I'm going to talk about the agenda, just very briefly. So we'll have our leaders, Tristan and Savannah, do a quick analysis of the situation. So you'll learn just a little bit of history of Venezuela. We are also fortunate enough to have some DSA electeds on the call, Jabari Brisport and council member Alexa Aviles, who represent the region where President Nicolas Maduro is currently being held hostage. We'll also hear from the NLC, which is the National Labor Commission, as well as the NEC, the National Electoral Commission. And we'll also talk about, like I said, our next steps for organizing against this illegal war against Venezuela, and next steps. So in terms of, we go to the slides, we're going to talk in depth about more of these demands, but we have 5 demands. The first one is to free President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores now. That is our first demand. The second one is to pass the War Powers Resolution, which we're going to explain what that is. But we absolutely need to pass a War Powers Resolution. That way Trump can't just continue to attack Venezuela without any restraint. And so the third thing is to impeach Trump for war crimes. This is an absolute criminal behavior, and he needs to be impeached. The fourth demand is no war for oil. And the fifth demand is to end all sanctions against Venezuela, which is something that the DSA that we've advocated for years now. And so we have 2 things in the immediate future that we're going to be organizing around. The first is to organize and attend a day of action, an action during DSA's National Day of Protest, and it's going to be this Saturday, January 10th, and we're actually working with BSL, so they've co-endorsed January 10th, this Saturday, as a national day of action. And so the plan is that we're going to be working together and also potentially aligning with other left groups in the United States. Another thing we're going to be asking you to do in the immediate future is to lobby congressional leaders to vote yes for the War Powers Resolution, so that minimally, at least, President Trump needs a vote by Congress in order to continue aggression against the country. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Tristan and Savannah. They're going to do a quick analysis on the situation in Venezuela. And I don't know actually who's going first. Is it Tristan or is it Savannah?
I think we're both doing a short intro. So my name's Tristan. I'm representing Triangle DSA. You can see on my shirt. I'm also one of the International Committee's America's Division co-chairs. And I must put a plug out there for the International Committee. We do a lot of great work, and we can always use more people involved. And then, Savannah, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Tristan. So, hi, everyone. I'm Savannah. I'm a member of the San Francisco chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, and I'm also one of the co-chairs of the IC's Venezuela Working Group, which is within the America Subcommittee. So this is a very pivotal time to join the working group, come to our meetings. So putting a little plug out there as well. So we will be sharing some links during this chat and also after the call if you want to join us. Thanks.
Wonderful. I think we can advance slide. Perfect. Okay, so I think it's very useful. There's a lot of misinformation about Venezuela, and a lot of people, the average person off the street probably doesn't know that much about Venezuela, and that's okay. So we're going to do a little bit of contextualization and a little bit of history because we think it's useful. You can go ahead and advance slide. So, what does the U.S. empire want with Venezuela? I would say there's three main things that the U.S. empire, why the U.S. empire is targeting Venezuela like this. One, obviously, is oil. So if you don't know, Venezuela has the largest proven petroleum reserves in the world. So that's absolutely, Donald Trump talks about this all the time, how he wants the oil, how it's our oil, right? It's a U.S. oil, which is a ridiculous claim. But that's absolutely part of the calculus. Another part of this is control of over the Western Hemisphere. And we've seen this in a number of different ways with this second Trump administration. It's also related to Trump's preoccupation with Greenland and annexing Canada, his preoccupation with Panama, and then also Venezuela and Cuba. So what we are seeing here is a fading U.S. empire that's seeking to retreat and retrench in the Americas so that it can sort of regroup and build up their strength to be able to fight a future conflict with China, most likely. And you're seeing this with what's being called the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. So Trump is using like this very old justification for U.S. imperialism, the Monroe Doctrine, to justify these sorts of interventions and this sort of claim to the entirety of the Western Hemisphere. And the third reason is to crush any hope of 21st century socialism. So U.S. empire thought socialism was defeated after the fall of the USSR. But after that, you have the rise of Chavismo, you have the rise of the Bolivarian Revolution. And this has been a constant thorn in U.S. empire's side since the turn of the millennium. And so it's absolutely the case both with Venezuela and with Cuba that these sorts of imperial actions are necessary because there cannot be any positive example of other countries following their own developmental path. We can advance slide. Wonderful. So we'll switch over to Savannah.
So before we go forward into all of the more recent implications of what's happening in Venezuela, we do have to talk a little bit about, the before times, a little bit of the before times of what happened right before, Chavez took office and started the Bolivarian Revolution. So this is one of those very important moments, which is the El Caracazo. So basically, the poor of Caracas break out in protest of the right-wing government's neoliberal austerity program. And a lot of that had to do with, a lot of the different policy changes that favored the elite class in Venezuela and basically no investment to any social programs, etc. So this also this also resulted in the oil wealth of Venezuela, which benefits the tiny comprador class, like Maria Corina Machado. Her family is also part of that tiny class, and also the MNC, so the multinational corporations. And as a result of this protest, hundreds were slaughtered by this right-wing government. And this was one of the most important moments and also many other moments alongside, which led to radicalizing Chavez to act. If we can advance in the next slide. So, the rise of Chavez. So, as many folks may or may not know, Hugo Chavez initially tried to take power in a left-wing military coup on February 4th of 92. And this was basically a couple years after 89, after the protests. And so he did fail por ahora. So por ahora, for those that may not know in Spanish, it means for now. It was a very popular term among the poor and working class of Venezuela to use that as a way to believe in hope or the hope for the future of Venezuela. And so this was the very famous key term that people were using during the rise of Chavez. And also, after he failed. He was released from prison and had successful runs for president in 1999. And also after he became president, Chavez used the oil wealth to fund expansive social programs to benefit the poor of Venezuela. And of course, this was the start of launching the Bolivarian Revolution and process, and also alongside with establishing key principles as part of this process as well. And this does draw eerie from the US empire. So next slide. And I think many folks also know about the 2002 coup, but just a brief recap. There was a US-backed coup under President Bush that did remove Chavez from power for about 48 hours. Now, there were many attempted coups after that, of course, but this was one of the most famous one, which did last for about that long. And of course, the people of Venezuela did mobilize against the coup, which led to immediately freeing Chavez and having him return to power. And of course, not surprising, Maria Corina Machado did help lead the coup and did sign the Carmona Decree that erased the Constitution, which was established also in 99. And I'll turn it over to Tristan now.
Yeah, wonderful. So some of the context I think is useful to think about is thinking about some of the successes of the Bolivarian Revolution. Here's some beautiful murals in Venezuela. So one of the big things that a lot of people don't know about is El Gran Misión Vivienda, or La Gran Misión Vivienda, which has created to date about 4.9 million good quality homes. That's like social housing for Venezuela's poor and working class. I've seen these homes myself. I've actually been to a party in one of them, but they're very beautiful. They're well built, and they're sold at cost, which is makes them sort of deeply affordable. This was in the context of some mudslides that destroyed a lot of housing. A lot of the housing around Caracas is sort of informally built. And so you had, and also in the hills around Caracas. And so with mudslides, a lot of the people, most on the periphery of Caracas, both like economically and geographically, were displaced and their homes destroyed. And so this is a project after that to build good quality housing for the poor and working class of Venezuela. Another thing that's important to note is the communal movement. So a part of like a really, like especially towards the end, a driving part of Chavez's vision for socialism in Venezuela is that has to be communal and like sort of a decentralized sort of has a decentralized horizontal aspect that relates to the state as well. And so there's it fluctuates, but there's about like 5,000 decentralized, localized socialist communes that cover all sorts of different things, from food production to more artistic sorts of pursuits. And one of the big parts of the electoral campaign in 2024 was more power and resources to the communes, which had an effect of like in boosting turnout. We can advance slide. Another thing that I think is relevant to a lot of people in DSA is understanding that Venezuelan solidarity with Palestine. So here's a quote from relatively recently, which is, "Palestine is the homeland of humanity. Just as we defend our land, Venezuela, our Bolivarian homeland, the most important battle that humanity has is for the liberation of Palestine." From President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela also has a large minority Palestinian population, which is another relevant aspect of this solidarity, but not the only relevant aspect. And you really do see, and we actually did the Venezuela Working Group. If you go to our Venezuelan Solidarity page on the IEC website, we did a webinar on specifically the issue of Palestine as it relates to Venezuela, because the far right opposition, especially Maria Corina Machado, is avowedly Zionist, versus the left in Venezuela is absolutely consistent in their solidarity with Palestine. And we can advance, and so we'll go back to you, Savannah.
So as many of folks know, talking about the unilateral coercive measures, aka sanctions. So Hugo Chavez Presidente passes away in 2013. And of course, 2 years later, in March 2015, former President Barack Obama issues Executive Order 13692, which declares the situation in Venezuela an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States, which also established a legal basis for the US to impose targeted sanctions on Venezuelan officials, and also threatening to basically block off any investments to Venezuela as well. So Trump, during his term, did implement maximum pressure campaign to increase sanctions on Venezuela. And of course, that kind of led to where we are here today. Next slide. So this is just a graphic that we found on Venezuela Analysis, which pretty much shows all the different statistics on what has led to the impacts of sanctions. So I'm not going to go through this entire graphic, but this is just kind of like a full picture scope of the impacts of sanctions. Next slide, and I'll turn it back to Tristan.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. So getting back closer to the present, it's worth noting that, and one thing I do want all of you to take away is really like this escalation that we're seeing here is a qualitatively different thing than what we've seen before, but it's not without its precedent. Really, since 1999, there's been this U.S. imperial aggression towards Venezuela that's crept up more and more in terms of its severity. You had under Trump Operation Gideon, which is kind of a forerunner to what we've got now, which is this US-backed mercenary attack on Venezuela. It was derided at the time because it was a colossal failure, known as derisively as the Bay of Piglets invasion. But you've had like a lot of these sorts of attempts at like kind of targeted strikes against high-level officials in the Venezuelan government, and other sorts of like assassination attempts and that sort of thing. We can advance slide. Wonderful. And then getting into this past week, in case you don't know, so on January 3rd of this past week, so U.S. attacks began around 2 a.m. local time with loud explosions felt in the capital and nearby states. U.S. Special Forces kidnapped Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores during a military operation against Venezuela. And I believe the estimate now is over 80 people were killed in that attack. We can advance. And so at the time, U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi tweeted about the legal charges the whole point of this is this is supposed to be like basically a justice operation, like a criminal justice operation. And so this is to take President Maduro and Celia Flores both in order to charge them for narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. Currently, both President Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores are detained in Brooklyn. And we can advance. And so now the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has been sworn in as acting president. And that's sort of where we are at this point. So yeah. And then, Savannah, I think you had some last thoughts that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'll make it quick as we are out of time here, but as we go through all of these events, we all know that the US is going to continue its conquest and, of course, force its hegemony over Latin America. So we've seen this time again across all different regions and the global South. So it's important for us to learn from these socialist projects, such as the communal movements, etc., and continue to build our international solidarity as socialists in the heart of empire, fight alongside the international working class. Manos fuera de Venezuela. Thank you.
That was excellent and very educational. Thank you, Tristan and Savannah. Also, one last thing I will add, Operation Gideon was also called the Stupid Bay of Pigs, which I love. That's my favorite nickname for it. So next, we're going to transition to some of our DSA electeds. It's extremely important right now that representatives, that elected politicians are saying, are pushing against the actions of President Trump. And so our first speaker is going to be New York State Senator Jabari Brisport. He is a lifelong resident of Brooklyn. He's the son of an undocumented immigrant, excellent, and a proud Caribbean American. He represents New York's 25th State Senate District, which is also where President Nicolas Maduro is illegally being held hostage. So please, State Senator Jabari, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone on this call. Thank you to the organizers. Again, hi, everybody. State Senator Jabari Brisport. I'm a socialist state senator, DSA member of 8 years. Please join DSA. Reporting to you live, unfortunately, not from Brooklyn. I'm in a hotel room in Albany, New York, as we get ready to start our session for the year. But I do have some pre-written comments I would like to share with you all. And again, thank you all for being on the call. I want to start by saying I strongly condemn the illegitimate and authoritarian government of Donald Trump, period. Just this past week, the Trump administration was responsible for the violent deaths of more than 80 people, including an 81-year-old woman named Rosa Gonzalez. He also kidnapped a foreign leader and first lady and is currently holding them hostage right here in New York, in Brooklyn. It is our job right now to respond with clarity, not cowardice. Let me be clear, the only president who should be prosecuted right now is Donald Trump for committing acts of violent terrorism and for breaking federal and international law. Everyone on the planet knows that this is deeply illegal. They're going to try to make their actions seem normal or justifiable, and we can't let them. Let's also be clear, we're demanding that the Trump administration release the hostages that it has illegally taken and return the president and first lady safely to their homes. Why did this happen? The reason is the same as why the United States backed coup attempts against Venezuela in 2002, 2014, 2017, 2019, and 2020. It's the same reason why dishonest politicians have illegally imposed extraterritorial sanctions for the past 2 decades and have seized oil tankers. The aggressors in our government say it openly. They want to control Venezuela's oil, and they also want to stop dead in its tracks any political party that has the word socialism in its name. It's not a secret. They say this publicly on Meet the Press. What happens next? If we don't stop them, the Trump administration could go after Cuba, Chile, Mexico, Colombia, Greenland, or any government that might dare to disobey commands. Let's be clear, this is imperialism. Within an anti-imperialist organization like DSA, we need to respond strongly and clearly. We can't be following the lead of the mealy-mouthed losers who run the Democratic Party. They don't make any sense at all when they try to speak about this issue, and nobody is buying them as an opposition party. I'm so happy to see the turnout tonight and to be organizing with everyone. The United States does not control the Western Hemisphere. Donald Trump is a confused and unpopular man, and he can be beaten. Thank you.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, State Senator Brisport. Next, we have another DSA elected. Council member Alexa Aviles is a proud Boricua, Democratic Socialist, of course, parent, and current New York City council member for District 38. She grew up in Brooklyn and also represents the region where President Maduro is being illegally incarcerated. So please, council member.
Hola, good evening, mi gente. Unfortunately, I'm actually in Port Authority, so I might get interrupted in the middle of my comments, but thank you so much for being here tonight, comrades. Again, I'm Alexa Aviles. I'm the council member for District 38 in Brooklyn. And as was noted, my apartment is but 2 blocks from MDC, where President Maduro and his wife is being held illegally. Never did I expect to be here tonight to be discussing with you the capture and imprisonment of a sitting president from a sovereign nation who is being held and tried in our city. I mean, it feels outside the realm of imagination. That is because this is not normal action for our federal government to take. And this should not be normalized by any stretch of the imagination. As we know, Donald Trump has waged an attack on another country and is trying to force a regime change and has killed, as some of the earlier speakers said, including Senator Brisport, over 80 civilians. This is just heartbreaking, an unnecessary loss of life, an unnecessary waste of taxpayer dollars. And we just cannot accept this as normal or just. And so we know that Trump is threatening to expand military presence in countries across Latin America and Greenland. He's openly threatening other countries in pursuit of his capitalist agenda, his utter greed, and he's acting in pursuit of oil. His dictatorial power and obstructing the sovereignty of other countries. We know that he thinks the people of Latin America are not worth it. We know that he believes that the lives of his wealthy friends, whether they're pedophiles, exploitative billionaires, are truly dismantling our ecosystem day by day, and those are the lives he values. And the rest of us are left to suffer for the crimes of being working class or immigrants. And tens of thousands of New Yorkers came here from Venezuela hoping to build dignified lives for themselves and their families. And now Trump is also taking away their temporary protected status while manufacturing this violence and destruction in their country of origin. What crimes have working class civilians of Venezuela who have come here legally committed to justify the threats on their own lives and on the lives of their families? There is just no justification for any of this. We have heard there is no national security threat that was posed. There is no constitutional legality for this action. This is an act of war that was wholly illegal. Under international law, it's illegal. Under US law, it's illegal. And while working class Americans are suffering without housing and healthcare and food, and our tax dollars are being spent to exorbitant amounts for this operation, including just simple transport back and forth. And we know that the people who are profiting are the warmongers, the military industrial complex, and the companies that make sure to provide those weapons to fuel this endless militarism. And so, gente, this cannot continue. We have to call for an end to US military intervention and this imperialist agenda of our president. We call for Maduro to be released in compliance with international and US law. We call for peace and an end to violence, to stand in solidarity with Venezolanos. We call for respect of dignity and sovereignty of their nation and other nations. And we must fight back, and we will not comply in advance to this global takeover. Comrades, thank you for being in struggle with us. And I am a proud socialist. And like Jabari mentioned, you should join DSA if you haven't. But this is a time to continue to stand up to protect the dignity of other people. Thank you so much.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember Aviles. Next up, we have a speaker from the National Labor Commission, Martina. Martina is a labor and community organizer and a newly elected member of the National Labor Commission Steering Committee. So thank you for agreeing to do this. I know we have a lot of people watching, so please go ahead, Martina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Martina. Thank you so much for being here and for having me. As many others have said, what we've seen in the past week is another clear act of aggression and imperialism by the United States. I believe that as socialists and as workers, we have an obligation to our international union siblings to disavow these crimes. For this reason, my comrades Lavender and Sarah and I brought forward and passed a resolution in the National Labor Commission Steering Committee to use our influence, however big or small, to push the U.S. labor movement to be in solidarity with Venezuelans, resisting imperialism, and in support of Venezuelan sovereignty. The resolution calls on the NLC to provide chapters and NLC members with a template resolution they can pass in their own unions. The template resolution first iterates the union's belief that the U.S. has no right to intervene, violently or otherwise, in the affairs of sovereign nations. That all workers deserve to live in dignity and peace, and that President Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores must be returned to their home. In terms of tangible action, the resolution calls for unions to mobilize membership to demand an end to military intervention in Venezuela from their local and federal elected officials. It also requires that unions invest in political education on the history of violent intervention and resistance in Latin America, and that unions provide members with information on local solidarity events that they can attend as proud union members. I'm going to drop a link to the template resolution in the chat if you would like to hopefully use that and organize in your own union. 1 second. Okay. The larger resolution of the NLC also requires us as DSA NLC to do a couple things. So we're planning to host a phone bank to our list of confirmed union officers to encourage them to pass the template resolution. We'll be setting a date for that shortly. So if you would like to help us phone bank, please stay plugged into the NLC. And lastly, the resolution aligns our comms with that of DSA National, with an emphasis on the need for our labor movement to practice international solidarity. But so why did we decide to pass this resolution, and what are we hoping it will actually do and accomplish? As an author on the resolution, I can say that while we've been fortunate that, unlike in the case of Israel's genocide of Palestinians, the AFL-CIO quickly moved to condemn the Trump administration's acts in Venezuela and its violations of international law, I think that if we're honest about the state of the US labor movement, the truth is that we often struggle to consider our international siblings. We straddle a line of contradiction where our movement benefits from imperialism materially through contracts to move and manufacture arms, and inevitably, as the US plunders Venezuela's oil, to refine that oil. Part of our mission as socialists in the labor movement must be to fight the impulse to improve our conditions at the sacrifice of our fellow workers abroad. While many locals have issued statements calling for a ceasefire in Palestine, and some national unions have signed on to letters demanding an arms embargo, many of our locals have stayed silent on Palestine, and they will continue to remain silent about attacks on international workers unless we push them to do otherwise. So if you're a union member, I encourage you to organize around and pass the template resolution in your local, make it more robust with localized demands if you can, and help build international solidarity within our labor movement. And to be clear, I have no false pretense that a local resolution will end US intervention in Venezuela. But in a labor movement that has been defanged by corporate government and depoliticized in a neoliberal era, building towards a horizon where the American worker is willing to rally, fight, and strike for our international siblings requires us to build consciousness. These are the small steps that bring us out of isolation, that help us practice democracy in our unions, and that ignite curiosity in our movement about our imperial complicity and our power to rebuke it. El Pueblo de Venezuela has my solidarity, and I hope yours and your unions as well. Please reach out if you have questions or if you need help organizing, and if you are a DSA member who wants to engage more in international labor work, please join the National Labor Commission or the International Commission. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Martina. That was excellent. And thank you so much for talking about labor. We talked at the beginning about War Powers Act, and of course we heard from electeds, but at the end of the day, we need people out on the streets, right? And that involves talking to just normies, right? But normies who are angry about what's going on. So next up, we have an ask from Megan Romer. She is one of DSA's national co-chairs. So we have kind of a co-chair structure, kind of co-president thing. So go, Megan, please go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of normies, we're tossing it to Megan. Okay. Hey, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you so much. I'm going to be super quick. I have 2 asks for you tonight. If you are not yet a DSA member, I've been posting the link in the chat. I'll do it again after I stop talking. And if you're watching on YouTube and can't see this chat, it's just dsausa.org/join. We need you. We need your ideas. We need your thoughts. We need the resources that you are able to bring. This is a people powered movement. This is a member organization, and we need you. We need all kinds of people, including weird normies like me and and folks with extensive background, like all the folks you've heard from tonight with these sort of different things that they know. The other thing is, if you're already a member, you can donate to help fund this work. You probably heard about this call from a text you got. Those texts aren't free. You're gonna be invited to join a phone bank later. Those phone banks aren't free. They're not super expensive, but they kind of add up when you're trying to do them on a mass scale. So if you are able to throw a few bucks into the pot, I did already post one link. I'm going to post it again in a few minutes. Would really encourage you to throw a couple bucks in. If you are watching on YouTube, you can find that link if you just go to our website, dsausa.org. It's at the upper right-hand corner. And I look forward to seeing you in the fight. Thanks so much, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Comrade Megan, Co-Chair Megan. So if you were to probably ask a lot of Venezuelans what they would like, it's for us to demand from our government that the attack stop, that this criminal war stops. And so as much as I don't like to do it, that involves actually talking to our elected people, right? And actually communicating to them. Bodies on the streets for sure, but then also having that conversation as much as we, or somebody like me does not necessarily like to have it. So with that, we're going to go to show us how it works. We're going to have a speaker from NEC, which is our National Electoral Commission. Their name is Katie Sims, is the chair of DSA's NEC, which trains and organizes DSA members to win campaigns to elect Democratic Socialists. So go ahead, Katie.
Hello. So I think I'm not alone here in feeling really shocked waking up on Sunday morning to the news that President Maduro was kidnapped by the US military. I have really cynical expectations about what is normal in American politics right now, but that I think we can all say felt like a really crazy escalation and is really marks another turn in the accumulation of authoritarian power. Trump has been doing this all year, making himself more and more singularly in charge of the United States. And now he's declared a new Monroe Doctrine to rule the Western Hemisphere and setting out to run Venezuela as a key piece of his empire building. And it makes sense that it's part of his empire building. Venezuela's oil resources are a key target for the right. I think less than 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in my uncle's living room after Christmas while he talked about how the low oil prices were going to slow drilling in the US. And just a couple weeks later, it's, we're taking action to build an empire around oil. And I grew up in a family where the oil business was the idea of the American dream, where hardworking men could support their families through our natural resources. But we know that empire building and resource guarding are not how we deliver the dream of prosperity. When we stop starting wars, stop scapegoating immigrants, stop meddling in sovereign nations, the US can create prosperity for all of us. We can pay for doctor checkups instead of special forces operations. We can build quality public housing instead of jail cells for kidnapped foreign leaders. So our question for Congress is, are you going to let President Trump be Emperor Trump, or are you going to claw back your power and put an end to this deranged approach to foreign policy? And there's a few reasons why we're turning to Congress with this question. Congress seems to get less and less powerful every day as a mix of structural problems, politicians bought and paid for by the ultra wealthy, and they keep it ground to a halt. But when Trump is grabbing more and more power, he's taking this power to enact war from Congress, and they have a straightforward mechanism to step in and stop this. This is a test for them. And Congress almost stepped in just a month ago with a move that could have prevented the kidnapping of Maduro, the casualties that occurred this weekend, and the terror of these acts of war. But it failed by 2 votes out of over 500. It was just an inch away. And so that's why over the weekend, DSA launched a letter tool that's already sent over 28,000 letters to members of Congress. We've been texting and emailing thousands of people, asking them to contact their reps. And later tonight, we're going to launch into calling people and taking the next step to ask them to take an even stronger action. That's because when we plan a campaign, we know we're going to escalate in order to get to the level of pressure we need to accomplish our goals. So we're starting here with a broad action that's easy to take and that a lot of people can take. We're building and demonstrating popular support for the demands. I'm going to say there's a question that's come up so far. What if Congress does this and Trump doesn't listen? And I think it's worth thinking about. But we should also think about, if that happens, what kind of mobilization will we need to do in order to finally break Trump's power? whether that's through elections, through public mobilization, through labor actions. No matter whether Trump is beaten back by this resolution or by actions later, the people who will win that are gathering now. We're getting together, we're gathering our strength, and we're taking action in small ways, in big ways. So let's bring them in. I'm going to ask that we all take a second here, and I am going to send this letter tool. I know a lot of you have already done it because we texted a bunch of you, and that's probably how you found out about this call. But I'm going to send it here, and we're not going to start with just, you taking it yourself. Let's take out some phones. Let's get some phones out. You can pull up your window on your computer or something and just take a second and say, hey, I signed this. Do you think that you could take a second to do it? It's really important. All right. And once you take a second and you do that, I'm gonna give you another minute, just in case you had to copy and paste. You had to move it around a little bit. We want to also copy and paste the same message. We're gonna go to the next person. We're gonna go to another friend. Click send. And then we're gonna go to a third. And click send. Okay. And that's how we start. We start with little things, right? We start with just talking to people about the basic thing, getting them to take one action, and then we step up and up and up. And that's how we build a movement. Okay, so nowhere's too small to start, but it's about where we're going, where we're going to end up. And I think that where we're going to end up is we're going to move 2 more votes, and we're going to change the outcomes, and that's what we're trying to do here. So thanks for going along with that with me, and I'll pass it back.
Excellent. Yes, this is definitely a first step. Thank you for that, Katie. Is Congress our end all be all for the vision of DSA? No, of course not, but it is very, very important right now. So next up, we have my comrade on the MPC, both comrades on the MPC, my comrade Francesca, and then the other co-chair of our national organization, Ashik, will be speaking after her. So Francesca, please.
Thank you so much, Luisa, and thank you to all the speakers for this excellent content. I get the really exciting job of telling you guys some more actions that you can take if you want to mobilize to stop this war. So I'm going to share my screen. And can folks see it? Can I get some thumbs up or nods?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So we have a one-pager, very simple document with some actions that you can take in the coming days to continue to mobilize against the war. You've heard some of those already from some of our previous speakers. I'm hoping somebody can drop the link in the chat. But we have another exciting announcement, which is that we're calling for a National Day of Action, and we're calling on all DSA chapters to mobilize this coming Saturday, January 10th. So this one-pager has a little bit of a summary of the call to action and, again, why we are protesting this imperialist aggression against Venezuela and why we want to stop the next endless war for oil. These are our top demands, which Luisa talked about at the beginning of the call. Free President Maduro, free First Lady Celia Flores, pass the War Powers Resolution to curb Trump's military aggression, impeach Trump for war crimes, no war for oil, and end all sanctions against Venezuela, including the current blockade on Venezuelan oil that is preventing imports and exports. Take action. You can start by contacting your representative, as Katie just showed us how to do. If you want to find the tool to send emails to your congressional representatives later on, here is a link in the toolkit. And you can share this tool with your friends, family, across all of your networks. Organize and pass a resolution in your union. If you heard from Martina earlier about the importance of building an internationalist labor movement, a labor movement that will fight for the working class worldwide, everywhere, whenever it is facing attack. Here is at the links to the resolution that you heard about earlier, the template that you can adapt, that you can pass in your local union. And then finally, organize and attend an action during DSA's National Day of Action on January 10th. We have a page where DSA chapters, as well as other partner organizations we're organizing with, can register an event in their area if they're hosting a rally or any other kind of action. At the moment, there are not non-registered, but we will see multiple chapters announce their events in the coming days. So keep an eye on this page that is linked here in the coming days as new events are being planned and registered. And then by the end of this call, we will have announcements of the Day of Action on social media. So make sure to refresh this toolkit in a few minutes, and you will find some links where you can boost our Day of Action announcements on social media and make sure that your friends, your family, your colleagues, your coworkers, your neighbors, your union members can all hear about rallies and events going on around the country. And with that, I will pass to Ashik to tell us a little bit more about where you can find more information, where you can find talking points. We've seen a lot of, all of you have a lot of questions. We've seen tens of questions in the Q&A about what about the sanctions, what about the elections, et cetera, et cetera. We have some resources for you, and I will pass to Ashik to talk about them and make some final asks to everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Francesca, and to all our comrades here on this call with us. There's over 1,000 of you who've been watching with us for over an hour, almost an hour at this point. And yeah, just want to reinforce the highlights that you've heard. This is just a naked attempt to install a US puppet government. It's part of a long pattern of US imperialism, and it's more open than anything we've seen in our lifetimes. Trump is very open about referring to the Monroe Doctrine, which is something a lot of us remember from history books, from classes we took in high school or something, but now it's just very open. He's calling it the Monroe Doctrine and talking about doing imperialism very openly. There's no pretense about democracy or spreading, US human rights or whatever, like we heard in the Iraq War 20 years ago. It's just very openly about taking their oil. And this has nothing to do with drug trafficking. Like, these are just talking points that we want to prepare all DSA members and anybody watching here to talk about, to post about on social media, to take action. You can see the statement that we put out and the one-pager that links to our references, our resources that we're putting out. And this is what we're calling on people to take action around. So a lot of us might remember, or maybe some of you are young enough that you don't have actual memories of 9/11 and just what happened in those years. But this is really similar. It's like the failed war against Iraq under false pretenses. And we remember how that illegal regime change operation destroyed the lives of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis and destabilized the lives of many millions of people around the world. So that's very openly what is happening again, what could happen. But we have a particular role as the left in the United States. And there's a lot that we have today that didn't exist then, when a lot of us, we might remember from that period, feeling really hopeless and powerless. And a socialist organization like DSA didn't exist then. We now have over 90,000 members all over the country. We just passed 93,000, and we're growing week by week. So this is a time to join DSA. Our power comes from our collective resources as volunteers, the time that we put together, that over 1,000 of you are coming here. Many of you are active already in DSA chapters. It also comes from our collective resources. Being a dues paying member of DSA is part of what gives us independence from the two-party structure. We don't have to count on, rich foundation-funded, just rich people who might have conditions on what they give that limits a lot of nonprofits. And we also aren't just, people self-selecting as activists. We are a powerful national movement. We have more socialists in office now than any time in the past century. We have a strong labor union movement, like Martina talked about, that we can leverage now. And we have more members than socialist organizations have had in many decades. So this is a time to show up on the streets, to take action in all the ways that we heard just now. And it's a time to join an organization. DSA is an organization that's very easy to join. So if you're not already a member, this is a part of the call where often we'll do a little poll to see how many of you are not members yet. If you're not a member of DSA yet, please join, check out your local chapter. There's a lot you can do to plug in, even if it's just giving us your dues and joining and participating in what chapters are doing on the ground. So we hope to see you on the streets, and please keep up the pressure, and we're going to keep building it together, and we're going to take down the empire from within. Solidarity, comrades.
Thank you, Ashik. And for all of you who are following on YouTube on the live stream and you don't have access to the Zoom chat, the link to this one-pager, which has all of the resources we've talked about tonight, it has our Congress letter of writing tool, it has our labor resolution, it has links to our action on Saturday 10. The link is dsausa.us/VZ -1-page. Again, that's dsausa.us/VZ-1-page. And if you're a DSA chapter leader, you will find more communications about this. You will find a more extended and detailed toolkit to learn how to organize your action this weekend on Saturday 10, together with tens of other DSA chapters nationwide. Solidarity forever. Gonna pass it back to our host, Louisa.
Okay. That was brilliant. Thank you too. And thank you for making absolutely sure that everybody can access the one-pager. And, we managed to keep it to about an hour. So good job, everybody. And I just want to say, for anybody who's an anti-imperialist, anybody who's from a global South country or whose parents or family is from a global South country, I'm glad that we thank you for being here, of course. And, just understand that DSA is the organization where you can see yourself reflected, right? We are strong, deeply committed anti-imperialists here. I myself am Chilean. Those of us from the global South understand the importance of people in the United States, right, challenging the criminal actions of our government. Also, briefly, just want to give a shout out to JJ, who is providing English to Spanish translation for everybody listening in Spanish. We did advertise this call in Spanish. And so hopefully lots of folks are listening right now in their native language. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to do a phone bank. It's aimed for people on the West Coast, but if you're on the East Coast and extremely committed, you are more than welcome to join in. So go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, all right. So we are going to turn to action right now. So we're going to make some calls. And so the way that this is going to work is that I'm going to give a little training on how we use a dialer. We're going to use a tool that makes a lot of calls really efficiently.